There is a really, really messed up story in Pink News. Pink News, I guess, is a gay website. And so this is a story, I guess, that's supposed to be sympathetic to the couple here. It's a gay couple who wanted a son sues IVF clinic after surrogate gives birth to a daughter. You see, this couple, these two men, decided that they wanted to purchase a baby. And so they went out and they found an egg. They went through a catalog and they picked a woman. They said, okay, that woman, that's going to be the mother of my child. And they purchased that woman's eggs, and then they rented the womb of a poor woman, and then they did all sorts of things in rooms in medical offices, and they had doctors combine the sperm and the egg in test tubes, and then they implanted the little babies, the embryos, into this other woman. And very often this process involves abortion. Very often this process necessarily decouples the procreative act from the sexual act within marriage, which just by definition can't exist here with this gay couple. And then they said, okay, we want our baby to look like this. Ooh, yuck, a girl, send him back. I want a refund. Send her back. I want a refund. Really, really messed up. But there are so many problems here. On the most shallow level, it's sexism. This is real. They're actually saying, I don't want a girl. To me, a girl is less valuable than a boy. I only want a boy. Send the girl back. So there's sexism, sure. Then on the next level, it's the homosexuals. Well, that's not how biology works. Two boys don't get to make a baby. And so when you try to poke and prod and change everything and manipulate nature in this way, bad things are going to happen. Yep, that's true, but that's not even the deepest level. The real problem here, I think, it's the clinic. The real problem is the clinic. And it's not just the homosexuals. It is the homosexuals, but it's not just the homosexuals. And it's not just the sexism. It's the clinic. It's ultimately the big problem here is this mistaken belief that we have a right to a child. You don't have a right to a child. People struggle with infertility, and it can be so extremely painful. Sweet little Lisa and I, we didn't get a baby right away. Took a couple of years. And I know how hard that is. I know, it's really, truly hard. Still, you don't have a right to a child. The only person who has any rights when we are talking about procreation is the baby. And ironically, maybe not ironically, the baby's rights are the rights that we always discard when we talk about these issues in our society. Ironically, the only person whose rights we completely ignore when we're talking about procreation are the baby's rights. The baby's right to life, the baby's right to his natural mother and father. But the baby is the only person with rights here. Babies are not just a commodity to be purchased on the free market, okay? Babies are a gift from God, and a baby has a natural right to his mother and father. A baby has a natural right to be conceived in the procreative act, in the sexual act, the specific conjugal act of his parents within a marriage. Okay, the baby has that right. If the baby doesn't have that right, nobody has any rights in this whole thing. Okay, but we now view babies as commodities because we have a right to it, and therefore, if we have a right to it, we have a right to do whatever we want to do to be able to get it. And maybe that involves technology, maybe that involves the government, maybe that involves the free market. If we have a right to a baby, this couple really hasn't done anything wrong. If a baby is a commodity to be purchased on the free market, then look, this couple, they didn't get the product that they wanted. They purchased a product, the company that produces that product, this IVF company, didn't give them the product they want, so you have a right to a refund, of course, maybe a 30-day money-back guarantee, I don't know. The problem here is that a baby is not just a product, just a commodity to be bought and sold. A baby is a human being made in the image of likeness of God, just like you, and the baby has rights here. This is a level. The libs either don't get this or don't care. They just completely reject that idea that babies have rights and that you shouldn't be allowed to just force your will on reality. But the conservatives tend to get this a little bit more. Conservatives know that this is wrong. Conservatives know this is deeply, deeply wrong. But are conservatives willing to go all the way here? Are conservatives willing to say, well, if you don't have a right to a baby, then we need to have a much more serious bioethical discussion about all of these reproductive technologies, not just for the gays, not just for single women, but even for married couples. Maybe we need to talk a little more seriously about the bioethical problems with IVF. I don't know that a lot of conservatives want to do that, because a lot of people have used these technologies and have gotten kids out of these technologies. And so it's easy to ignore the stories that happen all the time. You hear these stories all the time, not just with homosexuals, but you'll hear of a couple getting the wrong baby. Oh, oops, there was a mistake with the test tubes, and this couple got this other couple's baby, and now there are lawsuits, and these stories crop up pretty regularly. But if you have personally benefited from it, it's easy to ignore those stories. You say, oh, well, it's not a big deal, or, oh, well, it's the cost of doing business. Right, but babies are not business. They're not business. It's not. We need to place limits here, not just on the government, not even on technology, on the free market. You shouldn't be able to buy and sell people. Right now, go to ahs.com/Knowles. Do you want peace of mind? Do you want to stay on your budget? That would probably be pretty great right now, while prices on everything are going through the roof. Well, the one thing I promise you can expect this year is the unexpected. That's why American Home Shield exists. As a member, you will know that your budget, your time, and your sanity are covered. Choose a plan from American Home Shield. Keep your budget goals in check for 2022. They offer a choice of 3 great plans to help cover the cost of repair or replace parts of major home systems and appliances, no matter their age. If American Home Shield cannot repair the covered item, they will replace it. AHS members get more coverage options, fewer exclusions. We're talking HVAC systems, plumbing, kitchen appliances. Their plans help protect parts of up to 23 essential home systems and appliances. Coverage no matter how old those systems are. Keep your home up and running. Keep your budget on track with American Home Shield. Right now, our listeners can take $50 off their most comprehensive plans ever. Go to ahs.com/Knowles. Save $50. That's ahs.com/Knowles for $50 off any plan. American Home Shield. Be sure with the Shield. Service fees, limitations, and exclusions apply. See plan for details. This goes to an even deeper level then. It's a way bigger issue, and I don't know that conservatives are totally ready to open this can of worms. The FDA just received its first application for an over-the-counter birth control pill. This is probably a pretty bad idea, by the way, because, birth control, it just messes with all of your hormones, and as we're living at a time where all these quacks are pushing all these sorts of hormonal treatments, I'm not sure that we want to make it easier, less regulated, less oversight when it comes to shilling these drugs. But the application came in just weeks after the overruling of Roe v. Wade. And the overruling of Roe v. Wade has raised questions about contraceptives. So the libs, because the libs can't defend abortion or Roe v. Wade or Planned Parenthood v. Casey, the libs focused in and they said, well, with this Supreme Court decision, pretty soon you're going to lose gay marriage and the right to homosexual sodomy and contraceptives. Because the principle at play in Roe v. Wade is the principle at play in those cases. And the majority of the court that overruled Roe v. Wade specifically said, no, this has nothing to do with that. It has nothing to do with condoms or birth control or anything like that. But Justice Thomas, in his concurrence, said, yeah, this decision doesn't have to do with that, but probably it should. So Thomas gave the really honest answer here. And the court is still right in practice because, well, the proof of the pudding is in the tasting. Clarence Thomas couldn't get a single other, even conservative judge to sign on to his concurrence. So the court is signaling they have no appetite to overrule the quote-unquote right to contraception. But there is no right to contraception in the Constitution. There is no right to homosexual sodomy in the Constitution, Lawrence v. Texas. There is no definition of gay marriage in the Constitution. Where did that come from? No one even suggested that you could possibly make that argument until what, 2012? 2013 or something? You might like contraception. You might like homosexual sodomy. You might like redefining marriage. And you might want to pass laws about all those things. But it's not in the Constitution. It's just completely made up. And it comes from a substantive due process, which is an absurd pseudo-constitutional theory. And it comes from a general right to privacy, which doesn't exist in the Constitution. And it comes from all this sort of nonsense. All the same sort of nonsense that you see in Roe v. Wade. So what do we say about this as conservatives? Well, if it were me, I know some of the real pro-free market conservatives, they'll say, let's get that birth control over the counter. Let's do it, but let's make everything over the counter. Let's reduce regulations. That's a very libertarian point of view. As a conservative, I think this is I think the FDA should totally reject this application. I think it's a terrible idea to sell birth control over the counter. I don't think that our nation's problem is that we need more birth control. I think the nation's big problem is we don't have enough babies. America, for the past 50 years, has had a below replacement birth rate. The country is literally dying. And now the libs want to make hormone birth control pills even easier to get your hands on without regulation. Probably much younger people would be able to do it without parental notification. It's a crazy idea. It's a really bad idea. In fact, the entire birth control regime is pretty recent. It comes from Griswold v. Connecticut. That was a case decided in 1965, which said that married couples have the right to birth control pills and condoms and stuff like that. And then a case 7 years later, Eisenstadt versus Baird, 1972, which says that unmarried couples have a right to contraceptives as well. So this is very, very recent. These were cases decided almost at exactly the same time as Roe v. Wade, with almost the exact same stupid meanings, at almost exactly the same part where our culture really began to careen off of the cliff. Now, what some conservatives will say is, well, hold on, if you don't want abortion, actually, it's mostly liberals who make this argument. They'll say, if you don't want abortion, then we need to have contraception. Between the two, it's much better to have contraception than abortion. Okay, why don't we have neither? Or I'm not even saying, I'm not pushing for a nationwide ban on birth control or something like that. Though I do think if people want to ban birth control, they want to go to their elected representatives and ban it. Totally fine by me, sounds great. We need more babies and we have too much of a culture of contraception, absolutely. But why are those the alternatives? What if we do what we did in this country until 1972 and say, well, you can either abstain from sex or you can get married and have kids and have a good life. What if we do that? What people will say then is, well, in the modern hookup culture, that's just so unrealistic. Where do you think we got the modern hookup culture from? Where do you think did that just fall out of the sky? Is that just politics is downstream of culture? No, that's some evidence that culture frequently is downstream of politics. You get the modern hookup culture. These legal decisions can be influenced by cultural changes, but the legal decisions influence cultural changes as well. And a culture that enshrines abortion as some right, and a culture that enshrines contraception as some sacred right and pushes it everywhere, is going to get more of those things. This is what the libs have been complaining about. After the Dobbs decision, you had all these new stories in the Washington Post and the New York Times and elsewhere talking to people who said, I think I might start abstaining from sex. I might start being a little more careful about my sexual partners because now I can't kill my child, so I might have a baby, and that means I'm going to have to be a little more thoughtful. And then the conservatives all said, cool, sounds great. Are the conservatives really willing to go all the way there? Are they really willing to have that conversation? Because very often it feels like what conservatives want to do is just roll back the crazy radical cultural changes about 6 years. We want to go back to the halcyon days of 2015 or so. Not quite. But of course, if you only return to the cultural and political circumstances of the recent past, you're very likely going to end up in exactly the same place we are now. We have to address root causes. Why is our country literally dying? You're going to have to look back at some changes that took place 50, 60 years ago to figure that out. How did we get to the spot where we're mutilating our little kids because of political correctness? How did we get to the spot where we're killing 850,000 babies a year? How did we get to the spot where a homosexual couple is basically complaining about how they want to return their baby because they got a little girl instead of a little boy at the baby store? We got to go back a little bit further than just the past few months or years. I'm so glad you liked that clip. We are this close to 1 million subscribers, and I can't wait to get 1 million because I know that's when YouTube is going to nuke my account. I know they're not going to let me get that high. So let's do it, baby. Let's accelerate. Head on over, ring that bell, click, ding dong, like, subscribe, whatever you got to do. Get the notifications for our new videos. We'll see you next time.